I decided that I was going to do videos. I wanted to be a YouTuber, you know? And I just thought that that would be a really cool way for me to be performing, because I wasn't performing my solo stuff at all.
Welcome to another episode of Contrabass Conversations, your show covering life on the low end of the spectrum. I'm your host, Jason Heath, and I appreciate you so much for tuning in. Visit our site at contrabassconversations.com to learn all the details about what we're doing here. And I'd love it if you reached out and told me your story. I love hearing people's stories. And you can do that by sending me an email, feedback@contrabassconversations.com. And this week, we're sharing stories about 5 entrepreneurs, 5 young people who didn't wait for the music world to offer them opportunities. They went out instead and they created their own opportunities. And you're going to love today's story with Lauren Pierce. And I had Lauren back on the podcast in January of 2016. It was episode 172 if you want to check that out. And she and I talked with Jeff Chalmers of Discover Double Bass about their show, Ask Jeff and Lauren, and a bunch of other topics. And I really wanted to feature Lauren this week because I think her story is a great example for young people looking to make their mark in today's musical environment. And we go into her journey in great detail, from studying with Craig Butterfield at the University of South Carolina to her halted master's degree at the University of North Texas, and how starting a YouTube channel led her to all kinds of unexpected opportunities, including creating video courses, teaching Skype lessons, and getting an agent. And you'll be hearing excerpts throughout the episode featuring Lauren, and you can find the complete performances to all of these pieces and much more on her wonderful YouTube channel, which we have a link to in the show notes. You're going to love this conversation with Lauren. I had a blast. Great person. You're going to learn a lot. Very exciting and inspiring. Here we go. Let people know about your early use in music and your first instrument. Was bass your first instrument?
No, piano was my first instrument.
Okay, like many.
Yeah. I started piano when I was 7, but my dad was and still is a musician. And so we were always playing music and singing. And I, sang in talent shows, from kindergarten all the way through high school and everything. And so, I was singing way before I actually started playing an instrument, but I guess piano was technically the very first instrument when I was 7. Yeah. So.
Piano, singing, and okay, that's cool. So, then what drew you to the bass?
I'm not really sure. I was actually talking to my landlord about this yesterday, but I remember in 6th grade, we had to choose an instrument or some art form, basically. And we kind of went around and looked at all the instruments and everything. And when we got to orchestra, my teacher played all 4 of the instruments. And I don't even remember what it was in my mind that caused me to think this. But as soon as she played the bass, I was like, I want that one. That's it. And my mom thinks that it's because maybe I saw my grandpa playing it at one point or whatever. But I don't even remember that. I think that we're just drawn to the instruments that we end up playing for the rest of our lives. So I have no idea.
Who was your first bass teacher?
My first bass teacher was Doug Summer.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
What was he like as a teacher? I mean, he's this legendary teacher. So many people have come up from
Yeah. Yeah. No, as a person, he was just such a kind person, just very gracious. I mean, the way that we met was he came to my high school to do sectionals, and I was the only bass player, I think, in that class. And so he ended up just giving me a private lesson, and he was just, I don't know, his studio was already full, but I think he could tell that I was interested and I was eager and everything. And we just clicked and he took me on. So that's just the kind of person that he was. He was a very successful musician in the Atlanta Symphony and would still reach out and help people. And that was pretty much how his teaching was. He's just very caring. And the way that he taught, I still haven't had a teacher quite like that. The way that he explained things was a lot less technical than the way that I explain things and the way I see things. It was clear, but it was artistic, if that makes sense. So I distinctly remember him trying to teach me the off the string stroke. And I was just not getting it at the time. But the way that he explained it was just, he didn't talk about how your fingers moved or how your arm should go on the string. He talked about the sound that you should produce and the way that you should visualize the notes. And, he just as a person, he was so happy. And I really thought, that's just how musicians are. Like, they're all just happy and they just love their lives. And then I went to college and I realized that no, he was just a very special case, I think. So yeah, that was Doug. I mean, he was just the perfect first bass teacher to have because of who he was as a human being and as a musician.
Yeah. It's so great to have somebody like that in those formative years. It just sort of propels you on. What was undergrad like for you? You went to, I know you studied with Craig.
I did. I went to the University of South Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was a Gamecock. My undergrad was good. The first year I was there, I was majoring in education. And so I was supposed to be focusing on teaching and I did, but I just had this newfound obsession with the bass. Once I started studying with Craig, I mean, it was immediately like, I don't know, a whole new world had opened up and I don't know what it was about it, but I just immediately fell in love with the instrument. Cause in high school, I really didn't put my everything or even like a portion of my everything into bass. I just, was focused on other things. And, well, that's a lie. I say I was focused on other things. I was really just not, I was just shopping and, about boys and things that teenagers do. But when I got to college, I don't know what it was. I just really fell in love with playing and performing. And so at the beginning of my college career, I was sort of trying to figure out what I even wanted to do. And I realized that I didn't want to be an orchestra director and that I wanted to perform mostly. But then I had to figure out what kind of performer I wanted to be. And at first I thought I wanted to play in an orchestra. Like that was my number one thing because I loved orchestra the most. That was my favorite time of the day. And then I realized after a while that I liked playing in an orchestra, but the time I really shined was doing my solo stuff, and experimenting that way. And so to answer your question, my undergrad was just this, honestly, this 4-year kind of exploration of me as a musician. And that hasn't stopped. I'm still figuring out what I want to do and where I want to go. But it was busy. I worked a lot. I took a lot of classes that I just barely got by in, a lot of math classes that I don't remember. Yeah.
So you finished your undergrad and you were looking at grad school options and your path kind of diverged from many at that point. I'd love to just hear that thought process and what those maybe couple years going to grad school and then kind of deciding to strike out on your own. Maybe just talk through your thought process in that.
Sure. Yeah. And, when I was in my undergrad, it was pretty much just you went to grad school after your undergrad. And it kind of was just, that was not even an option. That you just you went straight into grad school right after you graduated. And my whole thing was that I wanted to get my master's, get my doctorate, and then teach at a university. I wanted to be a college professor. And so that was my plan the whole time. For at least like the last half of my undergrad. And I knew I wanted to study with Jeff Braditich. I knew him before. I'd studied with him at workshops and summer camps that he had done, and I just really clicked with him. And so I auditioned and I ended up getting in. And when I got there, it was so different than I thought it was going to be. I got there thinking I'm going to really work on my playing. I'm going to really, hone my craft and also try new things. Like I tried playing in the lab bands at UNT and I sang in the jazz singers and I tried all this new stuff, but it's also a very academic degree, and so I was spending a lot of time studying and I was spending a lot of time doing things that I didn't necessarily plan on, if that makes sense. And, the degree from North Texas is great because it's very well-rounded. So you come out of there, being very well prepared for so many different things, but that really wasn't what I was looking for. And I don't think that was what was best for me at the time. And so I didn't do well at all. And I remember talking to one of my teachers who was the jazz history teacher. And he was just like a very matter-of-fact, straightforward person. And I thought that he would 0% understand where I was coming from. And I just sort of told him, I'm really struggling and I don't know if this is the right path for me. And he said, well, it sounds like you need to drop out. And he just, put it out there for me. And I at first thought, no, but then I can't be a college professor and all of this kind of stuff. And so I tried it for another semester and then eventually said, okay, I think I've admitted defeat. And so I ended up leaving, and it was a difficult decision for me. And I doubted myself a lot for a long time because all of my friends, everybody that I was close to was in school and they were doing the whole academic thing. And I was seeing all of these options that I had from my future just sort of fall away. You can't teach at a university at this point with just an undergrad. You can't do this with just an undergrad. You can't get paid a certain amount. Like some people don't even pay attention to you if you just have an undergrad. That was my thinking. And so I struggled with it for a long time. But then from there, my main focus was that I just wanted to play. I was like, if I can't be an academic, I'll at least do what I know I'm good at. And that was playing. And so I started doing competitions, and that eventually led to me doing my YouTube channel, actually. I was doing one competition that required that we had video, and I recorded several videos with a friend of mine, and I ended up putting them on YouTube, and they did really well. Like, people were really nice about them. And I just thought that could be a really cool way for me to play and for people to get to hear me, and I can perform for people, and it's something new and different. And so I invested in all of that. And, really from there, all of the internet stuff just sort of followed. I did my videos for a year or two and it went well. And then I started my Facebook page, and then I started my online lessons. And then, I started working with Jeff on Discover Double Bass, which has been really great. And it's just kind of snowballed from there, honestly.
So it really started with the YouTube channel. That was like the first thing you did. It'd be interesting because I think a lot of people want to put themselves out there in some fashion on YouTube, maybe, but they're a little bit nervous about how it'll be received. Like, what have you been the experiences that you've had? Like maybe some of the positives and the drawbacks of putting yourself out there on YouTube. Obviously, it's been a net positive for you,
Right. Well, it's definitely a learning experience, and there are a lot of things that you figure out along the way that you are genuinely surprised by, and I think the first thing is I'm always just encouraging people to just put themselves out there, but there's a balance. Some people I talk to, they say, I don't want to put myself out there unless it's absolutely perfect. And I'm professional looking in the video. It looks great and everything. And I totally understand that. But at the same time, none of my videos, I can't listen to my videos. I can't watch my videos because I hate the way that I sound. I'm overanalyzing everything. I hate the way my hair looks. Like my makeup looks terrible. And if you think about it that way, then you're never going to put anything out there. If you wait until you're ready, then you're always going to find a reason why you're not ready. But at the same time, there are videos that I record and put on, say, my Facebook page that I would never have put out there as my first video. Like I recorded myself just playing the solo to Pulcinella and I'm in like workout clothes. I'm pretty sure I rolled out of bed in those clothes and I recorded myself playing, and people were nice about it. They liked it, but I would have never put that out as my first impression, if that makes sense. And so I think there's a balance between the two, put yourself out there, but don't make it just super low effort. But at the same time, force yourself to get out there. And so with the videos, you kind of figure out what people like and what people don't, and things that I think people aren't gonna care about this, or people aren't gonna, or this isn't great. Anytime I've doubted myself about releasing something, I have always been shocked at the response. Like the Herbert Cello Concerto videos that I've got, it's 3 videos, 1 for each movement. And I really did not want to release them, but I did it anyway. And they got a really good response. I mean, people loved them. And I was so shocked because I just felt like my playing was not where I wanted it to be. But, we're always going to be, we're our worst critics, and it's going to seem worse. Like you said earlier, it's going to seem worse to us than anybody else. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that people really respond well when you're just being yourself, and when you're being very genuine. But you also do have to respond to what people enjoy, and follow. I know that people love Bach. We were talking about this earlier. I know people love Bach. So I play a whole lot more than Bach, but I also know that, that's something that my audience enjoys. And so I'm going to tailor my videos sometimes to doing a little bit more Bach than I necessarily would have, if that makes sense. So it's a whole learning experience, and learning how to communicate with people is a big thing, learning how to make your, even make your videos clear to people, and figuring out like, okay, people want to see my left hand when I'm playing. They want to know what bowings I'm using, what fingerings I'm using. And so I can't film an entire video where, my back is the only thing, like people have complained so much about my Chartist video, which I love that video. I think it's super cool the way that it was shot, but people are like, I want to see the fingerings. I want to see the bowings and everything. And so there's a lot that you learn, and I could never, ever write a book about it because it's so many just random things that you learn that you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Well, yeah, you've developed this whole skill set, and it's interesting because you've got elements of what I think a lot of people do as a free, like you teach and you perform, but you've developed this online presence, and at least a chunk of your income is coming from online and from all these skills. And you're starting to get traction on YouTube. What was the next step that you did? You're like, oh, things are clicking for me on YouTube. People are liking me. They're subscribing to my channel. What did you do next?
Well, I guess the first thing that happened was I decided that I was going to do videos. Like I wanted to be a YouTuber, and I just, like I said earlier, I thought that would be a really cool way for me to be performing, because I wasn't performing my solo stuff at all. I didn't have an avenue for it. I had like this really cool wine bar that loved it when I came and played, and I played there a lot. But other than that, I wasn't performing. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to record all of the videos. I'm going to record like 1,000 videos. And I haven't gotten there yet, but I basically just said, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do on top of all my other work. And then from there, I mean, honestly, it's actually kind of gone how I wanted it to. I didn't think it would actually happen this way, but I've kind of made a little bit of a presence. I've made like a little corner of the internet for myself and for solo double bass, which is really cool and still really surprising. But it's, incorporating teaching and performing in my whole online presence has been really cool. And I love that. I love being able to help people. And so, incorporating all of the teaching was just sort of a logical step because I'm such a teacher at heart. And then, adding the social media was such an interesting thing for me. And I know that this doesn't really seem like it's relevant, but it is a huge part of what I do every day, is figure out, how I can, take a stupid picture of my bass, or like, connect people with what I'm doing. Like recently I asked the conductor of this gig that I was playing this weekend if I could do a live stream of the rehearsal. And I thought, people aren't going to care about this. And people loved it. And I just love trying to figure out how I can connect people to classical music and how I can connect them to bass. And So really, it's just been a couple years of me trying to figure out how I can connect people and what people will enjoy. And honestly, just kind of testing the boundaries, like that live stream from the rehearsal was sort of me testing the boundaries. Like, people aren't going to like this. And then people did. And it was...
Well, and I love that you're always experimenting. Like you're finding different ways to experiment with and I think that's a lot of what's cool about what you're doing. And I find myself experimenting too. I see, what'll happen if I try this or do that? And yeah, the social media thing is huge. And it's really interesting how everything's just evolved for you. And I think it was on the Entrepreneurial Musician. You talked about going to Codeacademy.
Yeah.
So maybe just explain what Codeacademy is, because probably most people listening don't know what that is. You and I do, and then like what inspired you to do that?
Well, what inspired me, first of all, is I wanted to do a lessons website. I had been following Jeff Chalmers actually for a while on Discover Double Bass, and I was just like so enamored with that whole thing. And with Scott Devine as well on Scott's bass lessons, I followed those two sites really closely for a while. And one day I was like, I'm going to do that. I love teaching. I think I'm, pretty okay on camera. I think I could do this. And so then I decided that I was going to build the website, and I am one of those people that I have to do it 1000% or not at all. And so I was like, I'm going to build it from scratch. And so I decided that I was going to learn how to code. And so Codeacademy is this really great website that teaches you how to code. I mean, from like ground zero. I mean, I did LiveJournal, if anybody knows
I know what
that is. Yeah. I was like a big LiveJournal person. So you use like the very, very basics of HTML when you're doing LiveJournal, or you don't have to, but I was fancy, so I did. And so I remembered like a couple things, but that was all the experience I had with coding. And Codeacademy is great because it teaches you step by step, and it actually teaches you as you are building your own site. It's really, really great, and it's completely free, which is unreal. So I spent a couple weeks only taking Codeacademy classes. I mean, I spent like all day doing Codeacademy classes, and then I started building my website, which was based on WordPress, it's a whole other thing. But yeah, so I spent a really long time learning how to code, and building the site and doing it at the same time was insane, but that's just how I did it. And then the site was born, and it had a whole lot of technical issues, and then I had to learn how to troubleshoot. But yeah, if anybody is ever interested in even in the least bit of learning how to code, you should absolutely go to Codeacademy, because it was a lifesaver for me.
Well, and it's so liberating or it just gives you so many options of what you can do. Because you're a performer, you're a teacher, you're now on YouTube. You've learned how to shoot videos, and then you have this whole new set of skills. And I know I've picked up, and I am not a coder, but I've learned. But compared to a lot of people, I'm like a super techie wizard genius person, because it's just I've picked up all these skills through working on this. And that's very cool. So you have a membership site, and people can pay a monthly fee and they get access to all this material. What are some maybe advantages and challenges to running something like that? What have you experienced?
Well, the coolest thing is that you've got your own community that you can build, and I love that. And I've got a community. It feels like a different community for every single social media and website I'm on. And it's a cool feeling to also have somebody ask you a question, and then you say, okay, I got you, don't worry. And then you film a lesson, and it's not only helpful for that person, but it's helpful for, a whole slew of other people. And so the advantages are just that sense of reward that you get, and also the sense of accomplishment. I mean, like, my ego was like all the way up at the top after I did that website, because it was like, I know how to do something that's not bass for the first time. Like, that's awesome. But at the same time, I also knew all of the things that I was really bad at. So it was a weird feeling. But, you have that sense of accomplishment and you have the sense of building a community. And I just love the feeling of helping people, even if it's something that's, as simple as helping somebody with vibrato, But the disadvantages, I think, are a lot of things that you wouldn't even think of, like somebody emailing you and saying, this link won't work, or I can't set up my username. And that's so beyond the realm of anything that we talk about in music school, But it was really helpful, and it actually translated to my teaching in a lot of different ways, because I always saw it like, okay, well, if people can't figure out how to do this on the website, then that's my issue. That's my problem. It's not that they don't understand or they just aren't doing it right. It's that it's not clear. And so that translated really well for me with my teaching, because if a student wasn't getting something, and I remember Mr. Braditich always telling me this, if a student isn't getting something after a while, that's your fault. You are not explaining it in a way that they understand. And so that was a surprising benefit. But honestly, the disadvantages are just, okay, so you have this problem. Now I have to fix it. And it does take a lot of time. It takes more time than you think it will. And you get better at it, but it's still, when you sit down and you're like, okay, I'm going to fix this one thing. Like I'm going to change this heading to move over an inch. And then 2 hours later, and somehow your heading is now at the bottom and it's in purple somehow. And you're like, the positives are so much better. Really, it's,
Well, I totally empathize and identify with you for all that. It's like, it can be like a vortex of despair trying to work on these tech. For me, I don't know if you're this way, but for me, I go through like seasons of my life where I decide I'm going to take my tech game to the next level, and I'm going to fix the site. I'm going to do this. And then I just have to like not even approach those issues unless it's like an emergency, because I totally hear what you're saying. Like for me, that's one of those activities where I look up and it's 10 a.m. and then I look up again and it's like 2 p.m. and I've just like lost all this time. But again, that liberation of being able to like create something like you've done, it's such a powerful thing. And you have these musical skills that you've learned, that you've developed, but you've been able to open up so many opportunities just by kind of getting your tech game going.
Yeah, it's crazy. I would have never worked with Jeff had I not done my site. My site has not been like incredibly successful, and I say that not being, I'm very happy with what happened, but it's nowhere near the success that like Jeff has experienced on his site and Scott Devine has experienced on his. And that being said, I'm so happy that I did it, and I'm really happy with the final product. But it's mostly just the opportunities I've gotten from doing that, and from doing my YouTube videos especially, and even from, like my Facebook page and my stupid Twitter where I just upload like shower thoughts basically, and it's really cool how the internet has opened so many doors for someone like me who I just really thought that I wouldn't be able to reach people.
Yeah. No, I totally hear you. And I love, you've kind of got I love the concept of beta, of things being in beta, right? I think as musicians, we're so concerned about things being absolutely perfect before we release them to the public. That's like a real thing that I think musicians transitioning over to like, or adding an online component to their life, they think, well, I'm not going to play this piece until it's good enough to play in public. You're like, I'm not going to release this video, or I'm not going to put my site up, or what if I fail, or what if I but the cool thing, just tapping into what I hear you saying, is like, you've had all these opportunities open up, and maybe, this kind of broke, or like people can't log in, or this, and I have to figure it out. But you've had all these positives come out of this.
Yeah. And it makes you so humble too, I will tell you, because as amazing as the internet is, there are some people, like for every 10 people that are there to tell you, great, there's at least one person that's there to tell you how much you suck. I know. And all you have to do is look on like, my favorite YouTube video ever is this video of Da Shun Zhang playing meditation. And it's like him in this amazing pianist, and I love Dashun. I mean, I just adore his playing, and it's so beautiful. And on that video, there's like 10 dislikes or something, and you're like, what are you people even listening to? And so if that happens to him, but on every video, I get dislikes, I get people that criticize things I do. And some people are incredibly nice about it, of course. But then there are people that will just say things and call me things that, my worst enemies have never called me. And you just kind of have to let it roll off of you and not take it personally.
It is hard though. And like, there's no better way to develop a thick skin than put stuff out online. And like the podcast has been I have plenty of stuff out on YouTube. I have like all these grungy mid 2000s videos. And it's funny. Like at a certain point, I'm like, my opinion, and I say this with all due respect to people that use YouTube, but I was like, I just could not, I would never take a YouTube comment like seriously or to heart that was negative. Cause yeah, it's so, you put your heart and your soul out there and you like make a video and then someone's like thumbs down, like some negative. And we all have insecurities and like those just bubbling to the surface. It's like, and some of those comments, it's hard because even though you develop the skill of letting it roll off your back, like sometimes they manage to just like push that button that goes back to when you were like 14 and your like early teenage insecurities. And
it's insane how people are like that just at all. I mean, you're absolutely right. You develop this thick skin, but before I developed that, YouTube comments especially, they would really, really get to me. And it wasn't the people, like, cause I've had a lot of people that have given me really great feedback that said something they disagreed with my playing in a very respectful way. And I love that. But there are people that will just say things. I mean, it's the things that, people are just attacking you for the sake of attacking you. And like, I've been in tears over YouTube comments, which is so stupid. And as much as I say I've developed this thick skin, when someone calls you something that you haven't ever been called in your life by like anybody, or like somebody once called me fat on one of my videos, and I hadn't worried about my weight in like years, and all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, maybe I need to go on a diet or something. And then you think about it and you're like, why are you people so upset? Like, this is music. Like, this is bass. Like, just calm down, So anyway.
The one solace is like, if you ever, as you're a creator, I put things out there. Like, I don't know about you, but I've never left a negative comment for anything. For anybody. And even if I did have constructive criticism, just me, I wouldn't put it out there in like a public way. I would, if I felt like, oh, I just have to let this person know something that I've got a tip for this, I would email my private somehow. So like, I think the people that are out there, like leaving like the 8-paragraph negative comments, those are not the same people that are like creating typically that are.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. They don't understand what it's like to put yourself out there. And that's not to say that I don't appreciate constructive criticism. Absolutely. And if you have something to say, like absolutely say it, but maybe say it in it. Like if you wouldn't say it to your grandmother, like your sweet little grandmother, then maybe think twice about posting it, and I just always think with creators, it's the same, when you work in customer service, you're super thoughtful then of every waitress that you've got and every cashier and everything, because you've been there and you know what it's like. I'm super sensitive towards every creator because nobody's putting stuff out there and trying to make people angry, They're putting stuff out there because they love it. And I don't know, something about YouTube videos can make people just so angry.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I hear you. You've also, in addition to doing the membership site and then all the YouTube videos that you've got, you also have been teaching Skype lessons.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people think about doing that, and there's so many advantages, and there are probably some challenges to that too. Maybe talk about your experiences with teaching online lessons.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love it. I mean, the majority of my students are Skype students, and it's a learning curve for sure, like everything else. And it's really rewarding, but you do have to be patient, and I mean, the very basic thing you have to be patient with is the internet. Like it just can be really finicky. And, I have really great internet because I do Skype lessons, because I do so many things online, but even still, things happen. And if your students don't have great internet, then that's a thing. But even if both of you just have like the best internet ever, it just, some days is just not going to happen. So you have to be patient with that, but also you have to be patient and figure out how to talk to people in a way that they'll understand from a computer screen, And I mean, it's different than video lessons where I just have to sort of assume that everybody behind the screen is kind of getting what I'm saying. But when you're talking one-on-one with somebody on camera, I can't reach over and just adjust their elbow. But then I think, would I want to do that in person anyway, And so it's helped me actually to teach my in-person lessons, because I think, okay, well, I should just explain to you how your elbow should feel, how your fingers should curve, what that should feel like to you, and rather than me just reaching over and adjusting it. And not to say that's a bad thing to do, I guess, but you just have to figure out how to explain what sitting with the bass looks like and what it feels like, rather than by example, I guess, or just doing it for them. So that has been a total learning curve, but I love it. And what's really cool to me is just, being able to connect with so many people. I've got students all over the world, and that's so cool to me. I've got students in the UK. I've got students in Europe. I've got students in Brazil. I've got students in Australia. Like, that's so, so cool to me. And really the consistent thing with me that's stayed difficult is remembering the time zones. And that's really the only thing, but I love it. I think it's really cool that you can connect with people all over the world and do it from anywhere.
Yeah. I think a pretty recent development for you is you got management now, right? Are you being represented? How did that come about? And then maybe what's different for you now that you've got that, like in terms of like what you do versus what they do?
Well, the way that I got it was I just realized that I needed an agent to help me to further my career, because, I do all of this stuff, but my heart is still set on being a performer. That's what I enjoy most, is performing. And I want to travel the world, and I want to perform, and I want to play live concerts. I love that. I'm never happier than when I'm playing live concerts. And there's so many things that you can do yourself online, but there are just some things that you need help with. And so I realized I needed an agent to help me. And I just started doing research and looking up, different agencies. And I made a list of, oh my gosh, like a few hundred agencies. And I would research them and figure out, if they were even going to be right for what I wanted to do. And then I sent them an email and just explained, this is me. This is what I'm doing now. I sent them a few videos, and I didn't get a lot of responses back, and which is what I expected. But the ones that I did get responses from, it was either like, okay, cool, we'll have our people call your people, that kind of thing. Or just, a very polite, like, I'm sorry, we're not accepting new people now. Or I even had a couple people say, I'm sorry, we don't represent bass players. And I thought that was very ballsy of them to actually say that, but I appreciated the honesty. And then when I found my agent, I almost didn't email him, because at the time it's a small boutique agency, or smaller, I should say. And the website is embraopera.com. And so I thought maybe this is just an opera company, but he had a few instrumentalists that he was representing, but everything about the website was, opera centric. And that's one of the things that I love about my agent, Peter, is he just loves classical music. I mean, he adores it. And he loves opera too, obviously. And so anyway, I emailed him and sent him a few of my videos. And then I remember that day I went for a run. And I remember on that run, I was thinking, maybe I'm like just too optimistic. Maybe this isn't like, who would want to represent a solo bass player that hasn't actually done anything? And then I got back from my run and then I got a call on my phone, and I'm like very anti new people. So I didn't recognize the number, so I didn't answer. And then I got this message, and it was from my now agent, Peter. And I called him back and we had this really great conversation. And then it just went from there. And so I talked to him about it after the fact. And he said, I wouldn't have represented you. We wouldn't have signed you. We wouldn't have even come close to signing you if you hadn't had those videos on YouTube. So it's yet another thing that my YouTube videos have done for me. It's great. You just don't think about all the avenues that it's going to open up. And so having Peter and his managing partner, Terry, has been just so helpful. I mean, the work has not stopped. And in fact, I've gotten a lot more busy, because I know that I still have to do all of my things online, and I have to still keep working at putting myself out there. But what he helps me with is career development. He's sort of half agent, half manager. So, he helps me figure out the next steps in my career. And if I say, what about this orchestra? Do you think that they would be interested? Or, I met this conductor. I think that he might be interested in having me come play, or this guy might want to have me come and do a workshop. Then he contacts them and he takes care of everything. And it's the best, because then I can focus on things like the font on my website that's now purple and now like in the middle of the page and off to the left. It's cool because he helps me think bigger. He helps open up a lot of doors, and pretty much anything that I want to do, I just call him and I'm like, is this could I do this? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's just do it. And a lot of things that I think about doing myself, he says, no, let me take care of it. I'm your agent. Let me do this for you. And that's great. But, if anything, like I said, I've gotten busier because I'm just like, oh, I can do all these other things now, and, anyway, I'm still working on those extra 5 hours in the day, but
Well, one thing that zeroing in on what you're talking about is that he said that he wouldn't have signed you if you hadn't had all those YouTube videos and the views and just the social proof as like, look, this person can attract an audience. I think that's valuable. Everybody listening should take heed of that. Yes. And another thing I just love about your career trajectory, and I think you didn't wait for opportunities to present themselves. You went out there and you created your own opportunities. You didn't say, oh, I hope maybe if I do this and I do this, maybe I'll that university job will happen or this will happen. You just put yourself out there. You learned how to code. You built this site. You really did just not wait for the world to hand you a career. And you've created this really interesting career. And I think it's a model that people should really think about, because like you said, you wanted to be a bass soloist. Well, now you're a bass soloist. You got management. You're playing all over. You're working hard, but that's a good thing. It's who knows who said it? A million people have said it. But if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And before this call, you and I were joking about how just for everybody that knows, Jason has been amazing and has been so flexible with me, and I pushed back the call right from the very beginning, and then my power went off, and then all of this other things happened. But we were joking about how frazzled I just was, but it's all good. I mean, it's great. I love it. And I mean, going off of what you said about making the opportunities for myself, I mean, you're right. And part of that is just the way I was brought up. That's how my mom is. My mom is just like, okay, you want it, then you better go do it, And part of that also is that mindset of, I mean, if I could just be completely frank and completely honest here, I didn't go to like a major conservatory. I loved the University of South Carolina. It was the perfect place for me. It was such a great music program. And my teacher, Craig Butterfield, was just so perfect for what I wanted to do. And then, of course, going to UNT was great, but I don't even have a degree from there. So it's null and void. But anyway, I didn't go to like one of the top 10, like quote unquote music conservatories in the world. And so I have always had this sort of complex about me that's like, okay, well, what are people going to pay attention to? They're not going to pay attention to my resume. It's going to be my playing or my hard work, and that might be, I don't know, I might be overthinking it or overplaying that, but that's always been kind of the thing, is that if you can do the thing, then it's going to work.
I love it. No, I love it because, and again, it's like you didn't have to wait for that stamp of approval from whatever school we want to name, that you're able to, and I think that's super cool. And I think that's another thing that people should really think about. In most careers, after you leave school, nobody really cares where you went to school. It's what your career is, this thing that evolves, and it's what have you done in the totality. So, yeah, going to Curtis and starting with Hal is an amazing opportunity, but
absolutely.
You don't have to quit bass and go work at Taco Bell if you don't get into Curtis.
Right. And the thing that also I want to add is that, everybody that goes to all of these amazing schools, I am like not even for a second saying that they didn't work for what they did, because absolutely. But, everybody that went to Curtis and studied with Hal, I mean, they went there for a reason. They're amazing and they're great and they work hard, but it's just the idea, like you said, that, you think if you don't get into this school, then you're done. It's just simply not true. It's just not. You can do so many things. And I know a lot of people that went to these major conservatories and thought that they were going to be done for the rest of their lives, and now they're not even doing music. It just depends on who you are.
Well, and another takeaway I have just from what you're doing, and you're still a young performer, there's so many years ahead of you, it'll be exciting to follow along with what you do, but what you're doing to a lot of people, I think, would be much more interesting than what a lot of people end up doing, which is like what I did for 7 or 8 years, which is play in 5 regional orchestras and and just kind of what you're doing, and you do a lot of teaching and you do play in those groups, but you do these. It's got to be so creative and so fun. What video do I want to shoot? How do I want to do this? How do I want to? So I think that's a takeaway that I have in your story.
It is, but you know what? It's different though because of the internet. I mean, really, like, if I was just doing freelance music and I was only doing that and I was only teaching, like, I would still find a way to, like live streaming a rehearsal on Facebook, like I still think that that's so cool that people even cared at all. But, it's just because I've had all of these other avenues opened up for me because of the internet. I mean, like, I'm a huge fan of the internet, like, thumbs up.
Me too. It's been good to me as well.
Right.
Well, I got one more question for you. I'd love to hear your answer on this. What if you could go back and give, let's say, 20-year-old Lauren some advice? What would you give?
Oh my gosh. 20-year-old Lauren was a huge mess, like a big old mess. I would tell Lauren that being stressed is totally okay. Because I was stressed all the time and I thought that I was crazy for it. But losing sleep because you're working on what you love is okay. It's all okay. Locking yourself in your practice room and focusing on your senior recital concert or, just getting lost in this cool new piece that you've found, or spending your lunch money on going to see your favorite performer. Like, it's all okay. It's all okay. Missing a couple days of class because you are out playing or practicing or whatever. It's okay to do that. And it's okay to go a little bit insane, even if you're like super busy, and it's okay to, I don't know, it's okay to just follow what you want to do and kind of forget about other things, at least for a little while. I think we're told that we have to be everything all the time. Like, okay, you have to be the best in your field, but you also have to be a family person, and you also have to be incredibly professional, and you have to look good, and you have to eat perfectly and whatever. And I mean, like, honestly, it's just not possible to balance everything. Balance is overrated.
Yeah. No, I agree. Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come when you just get in that obsessive mode and just chase that whatever you're after.
Yeah.
I know I've done that a lot, and you get that bug, you get that, and you just want to chase it.
Yeah, absolutely. You should absolutely. And, if you're, you could do it a lot easier when you're younger and when you're in school, especially. And I say that, like, I mean, obviously I'm not like 100 years old or anything, but like, even now I don't have as much time to do that, but I would have never done my website if I hadn't let myself just forget everything and learn how to code or whatever. I wouldn't have done half of the pieces that I play, it's so, and also I would tell 20-year-old Lauren, maybe eat a little bit better. I have this running joke with a good friend of mine where we just text each other what we have eaten the night before, and it's always something terrible, like I had chips for dinner, or I had one apple and some peanut butter, but again, it's all okay. Like, follow what you want to do. If you want to do it for the rest of your life, then you got to do it like 1,000%,
Well, when 40-year-old Jason looks back on what like 22-year-old Jason ate, it's like,
oh my God.
Growing up in the Midwest, they have this thing called the 6-pack and a pound. And there's this place called Taco John's, which is this taco place, which people, they're really good, but they have 6 tacos, hard shell tacos, and a pound of tater tots. And I would get that thing and eat it all myself. And I can't even imagine what's in that and what that did to my body. And
your body hated you.
Oh, now I'm like salmon and asparagus and a little lemon, and I feel terrible if I don't eat like that. So
no, and I feel terrible if I don't eat well either, but it doesn't make me eat well. I still eat horribly. And in fact, last night I had chips for dinner, and that's what I did. Like, chips have protein, right?
I think they have a little. Yeah. Well, Lauren, this has been a blast.
It's so great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and just let people know where they can find you online.
Oh, absolutely. You can find me on laurenpiercebass.com. And if you type in on YouTube, Lauren Pierce Bass, then I'm the only Lauren Pierce that plays bass. I'm on Facebook. Just type in Lauren Pierce Bass, and there I am. Pretty much, if you type in Lauren Pierce Bass in Google,
nice,
then you will find me.
Thanks again, Lauren, for the great interview. So great to talk to you. And be sure to check her out online at laurenpiercebass.com. And thank you so much for listening. You made it to the end of another episode, and I appreciate it so much. I appreciate you taking the time, and I know you could be doing many things with this time, and I hope that it's time well spent. I'm just honored that you're spending time with me. I know I appreciate it, and Lauren appreciates it too. We're living in exciting times here in the music world, and I'm trying to cover every aspect as best as I can. And I'm having such a great time featuring these 5 entrepreneurs this week. So visit the website, contrabassconversations.com, for more details about everything that we do on this podcast. And we will see you again soon for more life on the low end of the spectrum.